Call of Duty 2, the catchphrase of weird uncles who need to have a poop, and also the second mainline entry in the decade-spanning kajillion-dollar gaming series. I've been a sucker for Call of Duty for decades, always ending up with the next entry in the series in my library, regardless of my franchise fatigue and my own insistence that I'm not gonna get it this year. But even if I'm a sucker for COD, it doesn't mean that I'm not also deeply critical of the series, especially the role it plays in normalizing US imperialism, the military-industrial complex, and the general rah-rah, freedom seeds are for killing terrorists propaganda. Like we established in the first episode in this series focusing on 2003's Call of Duty, despite all of the other videos made about this franchise, I've yet to see anyone look at Call of Duty's depictions of war crimes. And even further than that, I'm curious to see if, as the series evolved from a Medal of Honor knockoff to the largest franchise in gaming history, if that deepening relationship between Activision, the US military, and defense companies increased, normalized, or even justified depictions of war crimes. My plan in this ongoing series is to chronologically play and analyze every single Call of Duty game and apply my research to count every war crime in Call of Duty. But before we dive into 2005's Call of Duty 2, I would just like to reissue my general disclaimer from the first episode. I am not a legal expert, but all of the sources that I used for my research about the rules of war are publicly available and they will be linked in the description down below. I'm also still making these videos as a wombo combo of educational and entertainment purposes, edutainment if you will, and it's hard to toe the line between such a serious topic and my own desire to appear funny and likable. War is an inherently bad thing. Video games love to depict war and violence, so there is a chance that scenes in this video or one of the further into this series might be upsetting either in their in-game depiction or the real-world context that I'm comparing scenes to. Please, whatever you do, just look out for yourselves. I'd also like to make clear that any jokes or tone of my delivery are not meant to undercut the severity or seriousness of this topic, but rather to help bridge the gap of navigating and educating about a serious topic against that backdrop of the general silliness of a video game. Now, this series takes a ton of time and research to produce, so please subscribe to the channel to keep up with this and the other stuff that I'm doing here. Now, let's count all of the war crimes in Call of Duty 2. Call of Duty 2 opens where Call of Duty 1 wrapped up, with the Soviet Union.
If you wish to survive, you will do exactly as I say. Now, walk over to that table and pick up those weapons.
This time, our tutorial takes place in the Moscow winter just before the German invasion. We're given the basics, asked to shoot some teddy bears,
Good, now fire.
throw potatoes in a thematically appropriate way to learn about grenades,
These are potatoes, Comrade Commissar. Why are we using potatoes instead of real grenades?
Because real grenades are valuable. In fact, they are worth a lot more than you are.
Oh, of course, Comrade Commissar. My mistake.
and then we're alerted that our unit has captured a German scout.
Comrade Commissar! Comrade Commissar! We've got a prisoner. Come take a look.
And Call of Duty 2 will set a new record for the fastest occurring war crime in the series. After only 4 minutes of gameplay, we are already torturing a prisoner of war. Now, like we've established before, once an enemy combatant has surrendered and been taken prisoner, they become a protected person. And honestly, even in spite of that fact, maybe, and just maybe, torture is, in fact, a very bad thing to do. After backhanding Dieter around for a little bit, we learn that the German invasion is imminent, only to have another dude pop through the door and then tell us that exact same information, which kind of makes all of that preceding torture completely pointless.
Sir, there's a German attack forming to the southeast. It looks serious.
Then the tutorial jumps right into full-blown combat. Before the commissar sends you to get supplies for the battle, he does promise to make up for the previously committed torture by taking good care of our new guest.
I will stay and take care of our guest. Remember what you have learned.
He's cracking his knuckles, so he's probably just gonna give him a massage or something and... What? No. And then he shoots him. Remember how I said that when someone becomes a prisoner of war, they're allotted certain protections? Well, one of those is against being shot for no reason. Call of Duty 2 is starting off with a slap and a bang. We turn back to the enemy assault, run to the armory, and load up on better guns and ammo. Everything's going really well, at least until I peppered this guy with my papa shot. Gravely wounded and disarmed, he starts to crawl away to shield himself from further harm, and then I shoot an unarmed combatant. The soldier was no longer an active threat and was wounded to the point of being unable to defend himself. I then took calculated aim and killed him, which is hugely not good. Call of Duty 2 expanded on the animation and health system a ton from the first game, and now enemy soldiers will often end up in a variety of wounded or last stand states. We'll talk about some of the others of this further into the video, but, and this is a spoiler I guess, we're going to see these wounded animations a lot, and we, or our allies, kill these dudes a lot. So, for the sake of my own curiosity and to help delineate between this one very recurring war crime and the others, we are going to split the wounded soldier was shot counter into its own section, though it will still count towards the final war crime total in the end. Okay, see, this is one of the last stand modes that I was talking about. Shooting this guy is actually totally fine, which is a weird thing to say, but it's because he is still armed and actively fighting. Anyways, we rotate around the town and destroy a piece of German armored artillery, and the tutorial is done.
My God, I thought we were in training.
There is no better training, comrade, than fighting to survive.
Our next mission jumps forward in time to wintertime in Stalingrad. Our unit is to push through a series of buildings and German outposts to link up with a larger force. And yes, our squad does feature female combat troops, and before you go crying in the comments about woke or whatever, do two things for me first. 1, shut the hell up, and 2, read a book. Fighting in the first abandoned mall area, we surprise a group of Germans, and I end up shooting 2 wounded guys in pretty short order. We clear the first outpost without too much trouble, cross through a trench, and link up with our larger unit on the other side just before a major German counterattack. We've got just a few seconds to get our bearings before we have to repel a huge wave of soldiers rushing our position.
For the Soviet Union and for your glorious motherland! Get ready! Here they come!
We push that assault back and immediately counterattack, chasing the Germans back into a large office building that they fortified. We work our way through, mopping up the soldiers on the first floor, where I end up doing this overkill. Killed that man, and I really did just keep going, which essentially works out to mutilation of a body, which, as you can imagine, is very prohibited by the Geneva Convention. But then, realizing that the remaining Nazis have barricaded themselves on the upper floors, instead of asking for their surrender, our commanding officer decides that the best method is to just blow up and collapse the entire building to kill anybody left inside.
Damn those fascists! They barricaded themselves on the upper floors! Shouldn't we ask them to surrender, comrade? I asked them and I blown them to hell! Get the explosives up here now!
We go ahead and place a ton of dynamite on key structure points and then get clear of the building before it explodes.
Let's go! Let's go!
This act absolutely violates the rules and laws around proportionality. We did not need to destroy an entire building to eliminate 20 to 30 Germans, as the damage to military benefit ratio is vastly outweighed by the destruction that we caused. And with this hell of a war crime set piece to cap off the mission, we move on to the next Soviet level. Basically, the entire Russian campaign takes place throughout the winter fighting for Stalingrad, which was one of the deadliest battles, I think, in modern times. Now, not everything is depicted in this game or in any of the Call of Duty campaigns that I remember, but Stalingrad was exhaustively brutal, full of starvation, desperation, freezing temperatures, and just absolute cruelty between the Soviets and the Nazis over a city that only ended up suffering so much because Joseph Stalin named it after himself, which in turn caused Hitler's insane ego to hyperfixate on capturing the city simply so he could bruise Stalin's. There was technically no strategic need to fight so hard for this city and cause this degree of destruction and suffering. Anyways, this is a video game video, and our next mission has us navigating the bombed out city streets trying to repair a telephone wire so that we can reestablish communications with other Russian units throughout the city. This is such a simple objective, but it's actually one of the things that I like about these early Call of Duties. This is a real issue that soldiers had to deal with constantly in war, and the ridiculousness and futility of having to fix essentially what's a string in a world full of explosions and shrapnel is really compelling to me, at least. But a lot of this level is just push and pull close quarters fighting. It's brutal and action-packed, and it really reinforces why I'm choosing to count shooting wounded soldiers separately. Our journey leads us through a large part of the city. We snipe some advancing troops, fixing more breaks in the line, and then shooting more wounded soldiers. I then also overkilled this guy because he was camping my next objective location. With the line fully fixed and 2 more wounded men shot, we are finally able to reestablish communications with our allies and get orders to grab sticky bombs to destroy some incoming tanks. We fight our way through more ruined buildings and encounter the first tank we're set to destroy. We flank it and destroy it without any real issue, which is a relief, because whenever I think of sticky bombs in games like this, I'm reminded of that one guy in Saving Private Ryan who was taking way too long with his sticky bomb, and then he ended up getting turned into tomato sauce. Now, during this part of recording my gameplay, I actually found myself thinking some pretty dark thoughts, hoping that that German would pull a gun so that I could shoot him with justification, and that was pretty confronting. Wow, that felt evil to be like, do it, make my day. That was a war crime, though. Oh, God. We threw 4 grenades on top of him, too. That was a wounded guy. I'm sure I'm not going to do anything with this realization about myself, but it was confronting. We circle back to where the mission started, and we're trying to outflank and destroy another tank. During that fighting, the tank is directly targeting me with its main cannon, which, if you remember from our first video, we decided was a disproportionate action, so it's going on the board. After watching my friend get his head blown up right in front of me, I execute another wounded German, and then we continue to chase the tank, fighting through the infantry accompanying it. We finally get a sticky bomb on this tank's tread, and with it unable to move, our comrades crack the lid and drop grenades in on the crew, ending the battle and moving us on to our next mission. This was one of the levels that as soon as it opened, I remembered it so fondly from my days as a much younger gamer.
Okay, comrade, this way. Let's go. Good luck, comrades.
Crawling through a conveniently human-sized pipe to sneak around the German positions. Well, you're supposed to sneak around, but just like when I was a kid, I had to shoot every single soldier I was given an angle on. The game does show off some very cool fixed lighting as well, as the Germans are trying to shoot back through the pipe to kill you. We pop out across the battlefield and join the charge against this train station. Because of my earlier mischief in the pipeline, we're able to push and capture the train station back into Soviet hands, and only by shooting 2 wounded guys. And smacking another one to do it. We get exactly 1 pat on the back, and then the German counterattack to retake the train station that we retook from them, that they retook from us, begins. The fighting in this station is chaotic and violent, and honestly had way too much going on for there to be any observable war crimes. We stumble over dozens of bodies to get outside and destroy a tank that appeared, and then we use that as a springboard to launch an attack into German territory to destroy their supplies. We clear out a post office and 2 separate machine gun nests, all very straightforward, with only 1 wounded soldier getting caught up in the middle, before we wrap this up and move on to the next mission.
January 2nd, 1943. The German 6th Army at Stalingrad continues to crumble in the absence of a desperately needed supply line.
After a brief history lesson, we're thrown into an insanely cold mission. I mean, just look at the temperature in the diary entry. We spent essentially the entire time fighting desperately to capture like 1 city block. A German panzer rolls in and immediately lobs a shell into the apartment a bunch of our homies are taking cover in. After witnessing yet another horror in this carnival of them, we run down from our roost to destroy that tank. I eventually grab the sticky bombs, scurry behind the tank, shoot a wounded man, and succeed in moving our position forward. We move ahead to clear out some more buildings, and I get approximately 47 grenades thrown at me before we end up in a standoff between our position and 2 German strongpoints. So anyways, I start blasting with some MG42s while this smack-talking sniper takes increasingly petty revenge on the Nazis on the other end of his scope. After some time of doing this, our allies blow up another building full of Germans, which is truly becoming a trend now. And then another panzer rolls in. An apparent testament to Soviet construction, the building we're in eats 3 tank shells to the same wall before crumbling and let us move forward to destroy the tank with our remaining sticky bombs. With that taken care of, we continue the push towards Stalingrad's City Hall.
Okay, let's move out! No time to waste!
Now, right from the jump, we are faced with an action-packed push to Stalingrad City Hall. This mission is actually super short, only encapsulating the equivalent of one of those L-shaped Tetris blocks. Other than our now excessive blasting of wounded soldiers and one needless overkill, we are already actually on the final level of the Soviet campaign. After so many missions of simply trying to get to City Hall, we finally managed to arrive for it to be immediately full of Germans, including 2 that I wound and then execute. Now we have to clear the ruined building out. One of our buddies gets demolished trying to return a grenade to sender, and then we get pinned down by a sniper shooting from across the courtyard. Luckily, we quickly murk that guy by using the old helmet on a stick trick.
Pavel, do it.
Yes, comrade.
Red building, 2nd floor.
He's dead.
And then clear out the rest of City Hall without much incident. Now, I do take a couple of pot shots at some retreating Germans, but as we established in the last episode, that's actually allowable, if not a little unethical, because those soldiers are armed, and, you know, war and ethics usually don't really go hand in hand. We then spend the rest of the mission defending our position from waves of attackers, counter-sniping, killing machine gunners, destroying troop carriers. It's a pretty fun survival wave, and there's a lot of killing and a lot of blasting. But other than my smacking 2 wounded men to death just to save on ammo, we finish out the Soviet campaign with relatively little incident and honestly some sadness on my part, as the Soviet campaign in both this and the first Call of Duty are pretty iconic, and I would have loved to have seen more of the Eastern Front in these games, but, well, World at War will be happening soon enough in this series, so now it's tea time and tally-ho, on to the British! One thing I do appreciate about Call of Duty 2's British levels is the focus on the North African campaign. I feel like not enough media covers this part of the war other than as a footnote about General Erwin Rommel's career. We kick off with a diversionary night raid meant to destroy key German supplies. We dive into their desert trenches and I immediately start doing what I now do best. With the trenches cleared, we get to the actual supply depot and link up with a canonically resurrected Captain Price. And then we get on to collapsing the German supply bunkers, which is not a war crime since those bunkers did not have people in them. However, wounding a man so that he burns to death in a gasoline fire? Yeah, that's bad. With the supplies buried in the desert sand like that cave from Aladdin, we clear one final German bunker to steal their war plans.
I have time to collect a lot of stupid nuts! Enemies! Help!
Just after getting those maps, we learned that our last position is getting overrun by German troops, so we hop into one of the weirdest vehicles I've ever seen in my life and go on to the next mission.
Move! We're finished here!
By the time we arrive, the town is already fully under siege. We roll in shooting, and then we run over a dude with our clown car, which I think gets us into the superfluous or unnecessary injury and suffering rule. But then we have to leap into the trenches and push back actual hundreds of Germans. While this entire mission is really just another survival wave, Call of Duty 2 does something really cool to increase the scale of this conflict. This mission has so many enemies thrown at you. Watching them pour over the desert hills is wild, and you truly have to use everything in your arsenal to be able to drive them back. In fact, we very quickly end up doing a callback to the British campaign in the first Call of Duty where we hop onto a captured 88 and we start blasting away again. Now, we called it a crime then, and I'm going to call it a crime now. Turning this gun against infantry, in my not a lawyer opinion, fits the bill of causing unnecessary injury and suffering. This next segment was very difficult to count accurately through all the smoke grenades, but here we go.
Nice.
Oh, I did manage to actually shoot a vehicle with the anti-vehicle gun. That is not a war crime. After this brutal and excessive display, we then have to rotate to other points in town to continue to push back the advances. Eventually, we manage to get up on the roof and we start using a radio to call in artillery support to bracket out the town, destroying a bunch of tanks and keeping the German infantry from getting too close. We do this for a long time, but everything else in the rest of this mission stays within the rules of war. We win the night as British tanks roll in and we get a hip hip cheerio before we fade to black. One of the crazy things about the desert missions in this British campaign is how it shows the complexities of moving a lot of men under fire across flat, barren land with no cover. Our next mission starts with us grouping up behind tanks, using them as mobile cover to get to a German-held ridgeline. We sweep tunnels and push from trench to trench towards a handful of German 88s that we need to destroy for our tanks. The fighting is consistent, and by this point, you know the drill. When combat gets hairy in Call of Duty, wounded soldiers get shot, and then Spooky gets too aggressive and starts doing overkills. We push into a German bunker and toss a grenade into this hole, which one of our allies for some reason decides to give chase to, which gives us another instance to talk about friendly fire. Something like this is super unfortunate, but this was not intentional and also not a war crime. Is it just awful at every level? Yes. And do I get sad when I have to be mean to NPCs in video games? How did you know? We work on clearing the bunker out and finally reach the 88 cannons through another tunnel. We clear the gun pits out with little issue. We then find ourselves needing to cross another bare patch of desert with the tanks as cover to take out the last of the guns, when some of our guys end up getting smacked by a direct shot from those 88s. We run into another trench to avoid a huge minefield, which we're going to throw a war crime on the board because mines are an indiscriminate weapon and they typically only cause painful wounds instead of cleanly killing. Landmines are bad. Okay. We push towards the next gun pits, clearing them out of Germans as we go. Now, with all of the remaining guns taken out, we then need to tackle the remaining soldiers in the barracks and then in a small cluster of houses beyond that. Eliminating the rest of those lingering soldiers, we find a radio and let the rest of our army know that we've managed to break through the line.
Well done, boys. You've just taught Rommel a lesson.
The next level in the British campaign is super iconic for Call of Duty 2 since this was one of the levels that was heavily demoed before release. We're advancing to attack a coastal city, and as we move forward, we watch a handful of planes dance around in the sky dogfighting. One dive bomber ends up taking a pass on our advanced tank, and then we're right back into the action. We are almost just through the front gate of the city when a bomb nails the minaret of the mosque, which is our first scripted war crime in a minute. Destroying or targeting religious structures is a huge no-no. We're then pinned down by machine gun fire almost immediately, and we have to flank around to help our troops advance. We get to the port of the town where a battery of guns is firing back on the British Navy. We clear those out and then work our way to a building at the far side, then using a stolen German radio to call in a naval bombardment via the absolute poshest man we've heard yet.
Broadsword to King 5. We have your target. Commencing attack. Out.
Sinking those German supply ships in the harbor. With that done, we have to then secure the remainder of the town. One of our guys gets Swiss cheese trying to breach a door, which an ambush attack like this is super gross, but it is not a war crime. We then neutralize the remaining stronghold in the city, steal some intel, and regroup with Captain Price and a case of wine back at the harbor.
Well, that's a sport of luck. Not bad, McGregor. Nice fight. All right, listen up. We're finished here. Well done, boys.
I'll drink to that, sir.
Uh-oh, what's this? Is it time to get tanked?
Well, isn't that a pretty picture?
Santa rolling down the block in a Panzer.
The next two missions see us change to the commander of a British Crusader tank, tearing across the desert and trying to smack the German armor around in wave charges since the British guns just aren't effective at penetrating their armor at range. I remain super ambivalent about the obligatory vehicle segments in Call of Duty. They do break up the typical action and they show a different side of things, but man, I don't know. These couple of levels really are just some of the Call of Duty missions of all time. And this first mission is incredibly uneventful for this video's purposes. We do a charge across the desert, kill the German tanks in head-to-head combat, and despite taking heavy losses, that's a wrap. The second tank mission is a bit more involved, where we end up using some Sherman tanks as a diversion while we take our team of larger tanks on a flanking mission to eliminate, and you guessed it, another series of cannons on another ridgeline. We rush the flank, destroying some panzers, and then, with a hilltop overwatch, start raining tank cannon fire down on enemy gun emplacements, tanks, and enemy infantry. Now, just like we established in Call of Duty 1, I am declaring that directly targeting infantry with the tank's main cannon is excessive, and therefore a war crime. And this is kind of unfortunate and also unavoidable because I'm not given control over any other guns in this instance, and I need to shoot to progress the mission. So I swear I'm not just trying to inflate the numbers. With all of the tanks, guns, and infantry obliterated, we are done getting tanked for the rest of Call of Duty 2's runtime. With our boots firmly back on the ground with Captain Price, we kick the next mission off immediately under heavy attack. We're holding our location as long as possible, blasting away against waves of soldiers before an armored car with another old friend, the 20mm anti-aircraft gun, arrives and blows our building apart. We manage to escape and flank the car to take it for ourselves, and then try to make a desperate retreat to our last line of defense. So I swear I'm not just trying to inflate the numbers. But as we're making our way out of the building, we get a little bit of info over the radio that our troops were based in one of the mosques in town, which is now getting overrun by Germans. We're going to put another war crime on the board because using religious structures for military purposes is not allowed. We flank and take this armored car for ourselves, and with this being an on-rails segment, that means we get put behind the anti-air gun mounted on the car's turret. I'd like to just take a quick moment to apologize to my editor again and publicly for this sequence because it is going to get excessive here in a moment with the war crime violations, in spite of this gun's super spotty hit detection. Now, I'll admit, as this mission goes on, even I was wondering, is it right to assign a war crime per kill with this weapon? And then I thought and decided, yes it is. This is my video, and I'm making a point. We eventually hit another vehicle and are tossed from the massacre mobile, starting a mad dash through the rest of this town with an increasing number of Germans hot on our tail. A group of friendly soldiers sacrifices themselves trying to hold the rear line while we work to escape in a moment that actually felt pretty poignant and significant despite being an almost blink and you miss it reference. We get totally pushed out of this area that we fought so hard to hold. Honestly, it is kind of cool and refreshing to see a forced retreat for the good guys in one of these games. The next mission starts with us keeping good on Captain Price's promise to be back to retake the town, riding in now on tanks through suspiciously narrow streets and alleyways. Our lead tank ends up getting smoked by an 88, and the column quickly grinds to a halt, with the infantry needing to dismount and flank the Germans in their defensive positions. The Germans have dug in and set up so many new defensive areas that it's almost unrecognizable as a repeat of the level that we just played. We knock out the first anti-tank gun so that our tanks can help us advance further in. We then move to a small courtyard and use a ladder to scale the building and jump into another area of this city. There are even more 88 flak guns scattered throughout various choke points meant to ambush our advancing tanks, so it's up to us to eliminate the crews. While trying to get to the next anti-tank gun, a German tank rolls up to stop our advance, and we only manage to get by that because a British tank Deus Ex Machinas its way through a brick wall and then kills the Panzer. We have to keep rushing the gun emplacements with or without armor support. Despite our best efforts, all of the supporting tanks end up getting knocked out, leaving us to take the town with only infantry. We assault the last 88, which is in the city square. I shoot a German who is wounded, but he pulled a gun. And then we are ordered to go and recapture the mosque from the Germans, which, again, a religious structure being used for military operations is bad, regardless of whether the soldiers stationed in it practice that religion or not. The mosque is retaken, but then we need to stand on top of the German bodies and use their weapons to beat back a few more attacking soldiers, which is our own ding of this war crime. But then another column of British armor luckily rolls in, and then we have the town back in our hands. We are approaching the end of the desert campaign, although not the end of the British Army's outsized presence in Call of Duty 2, and now we are racing to capture a town called Matmata.
Sir, are we there yet? No! Stop asking and watch for Germans!
In another sequence of driving through very narrow alleys, you guessed it, we get brutally ambushed just after our driver Obi-Wan Kenobi's us.
I've got a real bad feeling about this. You keep your bad feelings to yourself. Just keep your eyes on the road, Private.
Man down! Stay close to me, son!
Okay, I'm with you! It's an ambush!
The fighting is frantic as we work our way out of the kill zone and through this new town. Overall, the combat is very straightforward and above board, which is almost shocking given how desperate this level feels. We chase the German half-track back through the town and keep encountering more and more fresh troops. Thankfully, an allied tank sweeps in and helps take some of the pressure off while we move further into town. Then, I see a Nazi flag hanging from another mosque's minaret. I've only just had time to clock this, and then suddenly our tank is knocked out by dive-bombing Stukas. We can hear a large anti-air gun firing on the other side of a wall, so you just know that we're going to have to go and capture that so that we can fight the Luftwaffe plane circling above us. I rush the anti-air gun in the courtyard and sweep it across the remaining Germans on the upper wall. Hilariously, the game is even trying to tell me that this 4-barreled gun meant to destroy planes isn't effective against infantry, even as I'm actively one-hit killing man after man and increasing this video's war crime count higher and higher. With the infantry gone, we now turn the gun towards its intended target and shoot down a ridiculous number of dive-bombing aircraft. In my efforts to take down the planes, I do end up shooting the mosque over and over again as well, so I'm just going to throw another war crime on the board before this mission wraps up. With a municipal airport of planes now lying in wreckage around us, we get to take a brief hiatus from the British campaign and move on to the good old US of A. D-Day missions are, or at least should be, massive set-piece moments, and this assault on Pointe du Hoc shows a really cool, different element of those beach landings, while still being able to almost completely rip off Saving Private Ryan.
You know what, Danny? Why don't you just read it? Dog Company, listen up!
Our goal is to essentially rope climb up a sheer cliff wall that is heavily defended so that we can, in turn, find and destroy a large artillery battery that could target the other beaches. In classic war movie fashion, our landing boat gets hit right as we're dismounting, allowing us a shell-shock moment to really take in the horrors of war. like this clearly marked medic getting machine gunned while carrying a wounded man. Like we had discussed in the first video in this series, medics are considered a protected class in combat, and when they're clearly marked or in the process of doing their job, they're not to be fired upon or killed. Well, after we get our bearings and before climbing up the cliffs to continue the mission, I did take a look around on the beach while sniping Germans who are up on the high ground, and I determined that not a single medic seems to have survived this beach landing. We can't stay on the beach though, so we begin the long climb up to the top where all the German bunkers are, and where the artillery cannons should be. But it turns out that ahead of the invasion, the Germans moved those guns to a different location and built dummy guns in their place. So now we've got to fight through the trenches and further into the German lines to find those guns. During the fighting, though, I did notice a bunch of Germans on one of those quad-barrel anti-air guns, just firing at anything that moved. I tried to get a closer look and then throw a grenade at the soldiers to knock them off of it, but I wasn't able to for some reason, and instead, in a series first, but definitely not a series last, I became a victim of a war crime myself. A quick checkpoint reload, and we are pushing to the game's trigger moment, where we call in artillery to destroy that AA gun that just killed me. Lesson learned, don't be a hero, kids. We move past the cliffside and clear a small village area and an orchard still looking for those big guns. Eventually, we go alone with Sergeant Randall into a field set even further back past a roadblock and find and destroy the guns with a pretty satisfyingly animated thermite grenade. The guns are done, but this level is not quite yet. We end up moving backwards through the entire level back to the cliffs to clear out some bunkers that still have Germans inside them. With that done, we get a short moment of reprieve before diving into the next mission.
Need ammunition and reinforcements. Many casualties. Over. Crowds moving in from the south!
The next American mission is an extension and a rehashing of the first for the most part. US troops trying to hold the ground they've secured at Point du Hoc. Everything is going to take place in the same area as the last mission with some slight redecoration, and it's essentially just a constant fighting retreat while the Germans counterattack. Things kick off with us trying to hold the roadblock established in the last mission where the Germans are pushing up from two different directions. Oh good, they're putting smoke up, so I don't know if I'm committing any crimes. We hold out as long as we can until the numbers are too overwhelming, and then we do our first fallback move through the orchard. I run back up to the farmhouse and get on the machine gun mounted there and proceed to insta-fail this mission like 3 times because Sergeant Randall keeps mixing in with the German soldiers, which is then causing me to shoot the hell out of him. No, damn it. Sergeant Randall, why are you over there? God damn it, Sergeant Randall. We hold that first line as long as we can, but then we get pushed back again and have to roll to another chunk of trenches, all while panzers and what feels like hundreds of infantry chases us. It's at this point we're told that reinforcements and air support are on their way, but we need to essentially hold out and survive until then. As the fighting continues and casualties mount, we inch our way back to the edge of the cliffs until we have our backs against the last bunker before the sheer drop. Now, I think my game actually glitched out during this climactic end of the mission because I remember way more enemies spawning in during this final part of the fight, but this last stand ended up being way more chill than anything preceding it, despite my racking up even more shooting a wounded guy tally marks. In the end, we pop some green smoke on the bunker so we don't get hit by our own planes, and then the Air Force swoops in, kills the tanks, and we live to fight another day. This mission ends with a long speech that Reagan gave about the Army Rangers and this battle, and like, fucking Ronald Reagan jump scare.
Dawn on the morning of the 6th of June, 1944.
I wasn't planning to have to deal with his ass until the 17th video in this series, but I'm going to trickle down an extra war crime because I had to be reminded of his existence. Our next mission in the American campaign takes place a few weeks after D-Day and was one of my all-time favorites growing up because of how open-ended it was at the time.
So what's the plan, Sarge? I need runners with suppressing fire.
We're moving into a small French town to clear out some Germans and eliminate any structures that they could be stationing snipers in. It's actually really interesting because in the pre-mission diary entry, our character specifically says, "We've lost a lot of men to German snipers hiding in high places like church steeples and grain silos, so our new and unofficial rule is to blast any tall structures on sight." Anyways, our mission opens up with an assault through a field to commandeer a German 88 while we provide sniper cover fire for our squad. We do this for a decent chunk of time before our guys can actually get onto that 88 to blast the town's grain silo. Again, we've been destroying tall structures on site, and during this entire sequence, we were not taking any fire from the silo. This is just wanton destruction of civilian property with no military value, and this is also storing food. After wrecking the silo, our squad moves into the town, and we now get a dealer's choice on how we choose to clear out the remaining buildings marked A through F in this village. As you can imagine by this point in the video, this sequence of urban fighting leads to a lot of close quarters killing of wounded guys. But beyond these instances, all the rest of the room clearing is as above board as house-to-house fighting can be. The last building we end up clearing is a large barn which hosts the now decapitated silo. Once we sweep that, we are ordered to climb up into the silo that we destroyed because it might be a sniper nest, so that we can turn it into an actual sniper nest, so that we can then provide overwatch during the inevitable German counterattack. This next sequence is pure Call of Duty shooting gallery, as Germans roll in from every angle around the village, and our job is to specifically target any troops setting mortars down. We've got to survive this wave a lot like how we did at the end of the Point Du Hoc mission as the timer counts down until we get fully reinforced. We shoot just a metric shit ton of guys, but because I'm a giga-skilled gamer, not one mortar gets deployed successfully. The clock counts down and our Sherman tanks roll in.
Looks like they sent us a couple of Germans.
Seeing the battle is lost, Germans start retreating, and I still don't understand the loophole in this rule, but it is not apparently a criminal act to shoot a man in the back while he's retreating because maybe, and just maybe, he'll be back to fight you again later. Now, one tank does get a couple of cannon shots on those same retreating soldiers though, and I am going to count those just like we have before. With the Germans on the run yet again, we circle back up with our squad and the mission ends. The next British mission finds us in France as a different wing of the invasion force, trying to capture the town of Caen, which remained a frustratingly resilient German holdout well after the D-Day landings.
Listen up. McGregor will take second squad down this road.
Our flanking mission kicks off with us battling through another orchard on the outskirts of a thoroughly wrecked town around sunset.
Let's go.
Ball over there! Over to the east!
Mortar! Get inside that building!
Pushing into the town, we get pinned down by mortar fire and a barricaded machine gun in a house. One of our allies yeets a grenade up to kill the nest, and then we're able to keep moving. Our goal now? Find and eliminate mortar teams. With those mortar teams eliminated, we are returning to try to clear out the town. We push into the final house and clear it quickly, kicking open a door to find...
Don't shoot! Please! She said... Hold your fire, lads.
Now, I'm not going to award a war crime here because even though I did pull the trigger, the game will not let you progress if you harm a surrendering soldier.
Fire, lads.
I say we slaughter a sodding lot of them.
Hold your fire, that's an order.
Whatever you say, sir.
I do find it interesting, however, the juxtaposition between the Russian troops at the start of the game executing a German prisoner without consequence, and then the player facing a permanent fail state if they do the same as a British soldier later on.
Who taught you how to do this stuff?
You, alright? I learned it by watching you.
Anyways, we don't shoot this group of Germans, but instead deem it necessary to run back through to the start of the map to grab a truck to load the wounded and the prisoners onto. We get back to the truck and end up in a little on-rails moment, fighting off squads of Germans and a tank before returning to our squad and saving the POWs.
Well done, Sergeant. You know, Davis, I almost envy this lot of Yanks. The bloody war's over for these poor bastards. Listen up.
We begin our next mission moving into another French town with Captain Price to find and capture a crossroads so that a large convoy can move through. This is more house-to-house fighting, but this time, it's raining.
Careful, lads! There's an MG42 at the end of this road!
We no sooner turn the corner into the town and we fall into another German ambush. I'm really starting to think that we aren't reading our informational briefings because like 5 British missions have all just involved bumbling into immediate horrific ambushes. Anyways, we have to flank this MG42 and in doing so we witness Captain Price himself clubbing in a wounded man's head. No sooner have we wrapped around and then a Tiger tank rolls in to add some heavy metal to the ambush. Now, fortunately, there was a bazooka in the upstairs room, so we quickly scrap that tank and keep weaving through the town, sticking to the tried and true, occasionally shooting a wounded guy meta that has haunted us through this entire playthrough. Approaching the crossroads, we encounter an enemy half-track, which is quickly smacked with a friendly bazooka.
Well, that's a spot of luck.
We push the Germans back from that crossroads, but then realize that they are retreating to a large farmhouse being used as a headquarters.
Davis, take some of the lads and check that farmhouse for Fritz.
But before entering the barn, I fuck up extraordinarily trying to lob a bunch of grenades up into the window. My god. Oh my god. After that display of my elite gamer skill, I do manage to clear the barn and eliminate the German radios. But no sooner has that radio been broken than a 6-wave German counterattack throws itself at the barn. My time here is mostly spent firing long bursts of machine gun fire into various hedges as the Germans clown car their way into this fighting arena. Everything is going pretty well until another Tiger tank rolls in to assist with the attack. Seriously, Tiger tanks were not this common. I'm sorry. The tank knocks some holes in the barn, but before the situation can turn fully against us, the Royal Air Force and our convoy roll into the town and save the day. We regroup to stare at our silly little vehicles and then move on to the next mission. All right, you're never going to guess how our next British mission starts.
Oh, it's going to be an ambush.
What? No, there's no way that we would just keep getting ambushed. The structure of this mission echoes the earlier American Silo mission, where we have the opportunity to clear a variety of buildings in whatever way we see fit. Except, this time the lighting is kinda bad, and there's a Tiger tank floating around the map, cutting off your freedom of movement pretty significantly. Also, much like the Silo mission, our main work is close quarters house-to-house fighting, meaning that I'm gonna get to sit back from my narration duties for a while since we're once again mostly just shooting wounded guys. The church is the main central base for the Germans in this mission, and you already know, say it with me,
using a religious structure for military purposes is a war crime.
We sweep through the church and then a German field HQ, and with very little fuss, the town is ours. This next mission also starts in pretty typical fashion for the British campaign. We've been pushed away from our main objective of capturing Caen, and instead we've been chased and pushed back and are now trying to hold a defensive line in a different village. Our first task, again, is to find and kill some mortar teams.
Hold up here, lads. We have to find and take out those mortars. McGregor, get that barn door open.
We have to run around another city full of ruins to find those mortar teams, fighting back squads of Germans all around. The mortars are gone, but the Germans have set up a field HQ that we need to clear and capture for ourselves.
Good work, lads. Come on, we've got to take that field HQ to the north.
How does Captain Price know this? I have no idea, but we will follow our fearless leader to the next location. The German field HQ is in another large farmhouse with a huge field between us and them. We run and gun forward into the farmhouse and we clear it out. Using a captured radio, we let our commanding officers know that we've been successful.
King 6 to Easy 6. We've taken our bloody objective, over.
only to learn that once again, there is a huge German counterattack bearing down on us. We have to hold this farmhouse until the rest of the army can finish its retreat. The next 4 minutes of gameplay are insanely brutal. We end up just stacking bodies super high all around the farmhouse. Then another improbable Tiger tank shows up, and it's up to us to flank around and destroy it. We managed to stick a satchel charge on the tank and blow it up. Regrouping at the now destroyed and corpse-strewn farmhouse, Captain Price gives us a crisp "attaboy."
Bloody fine work, men. The 7th Armored's made it out of this mess thanks to our efforts on this flank.
And the British campaign is officially over. Now, as we head into the final missions of the American campaign, I'd just like to thank you all for watching and supporting this series so far. Like I mentioned at the start, this series takes a ton of time to research and produce, especially because I'm insisting on replaying all of these games myself to do this. Liking and commenting on this series helps a ton with getting this in front of a good audience. I read every comment, and I'm going to try to respond to as many as I can as well. And even if it's not instant, your feedback is exceptionally welcome and will more than likely get incorporated into later videos. All right, let's see what the end of the American missions in Call of Duty 2 have in store for us. The next handful of American missions all take place around Hill 400 in Bergstein, Germany. Before we can take the hill itself, we work on capturing the town, which means more house-to-house fighting. We quickly sweep into the first section of houses, and we have to navigate around a roadblock to start clearing out more.
All right, this road's blocked off. We're gonna have to cut east. Let's go.
Before we can do that moving forward, we get smoked by a bunch of mortars that have us bracketed in. Rushing to the next set of houses, we work on clearing those out as well before we then turn our attentions towards killing that mortar crew.
Good work. Now let's head north to those enemy mortars.
We decide to take a shortcut that involves us shooting a bazooka at a random house. This is a war crime, because in that moment we have no idea if there are German soldiers or civilians inside. Now the rocket blast lights a man on fire who is inside that building, but while gross, that isn't a war crime or even really physically possible, but whatever. Go forward to clear another house and are doing everything totally normally until Bazooka Bob sprints back in and fires a rocket at a group of Germans inside. This is an insanely not proportionate action, and popping one of these things off indoors without checking where your backblast is also insanely dangerous. But with that house cleared rocket launcher, we then turn our attention to the church. It has been clearly taken as a base for the mortar crew and their rocket bombardment half-track. With the church cleared out, we have secured the town, but we need to turn our attention to Hill 400 itself next. Our mission now is to capture Hill 400. In reality, this weird lump of land was hotly contested during this part of the war. What took weeks and weeks and tons of casualties in reality ends up encapsulating about 30 minutes of real-time gameplay. I just want to make it clear that it's fine, I think, that the game condensed the reality, but I also just want to point out how costly this actual battle was. This is a brutal uphill run into artillery and machine gun fire. We then spend our time leapfrogging between bunkers and clearing those while we switch back up the hillside. I will note that there are landmines littered all the way up this hill as well. We've talked about mines in this series and even this video before, but I'm going to tack on another war crime, their accurate inclusion, because landmines are horrific, awful, indiscriminate weapons. As we get nearer to the top of the hill, a classic Call of Duty 2 objective pops up. Eliminate the mortar crews. So we get to work pushing up closer and circling to find them. I clear the final bunker, destroy a rocket half-track, and wipe out the final mortar positions. We already know a counterattack is going to happen, so we prepare ourselves as this mission fades to black. As was foretold in the prophecy of the last mission, we are now set to defend Hill 400 from counterattack. Actually, according to the mission start journal entry, we've actually already been defending the hill for 2 days and have already taken a ton of casualties. Our bunker is full of wounded and dead American soldiers. There's a slim shot of hope that we're going to get reinforced, but we have to live long enough to even see that. We rush outside to repel the German counterattack in the way that we know best, killing mortar teams. We spent a lot of time running around trying to keep the Germans from reaching too far into our perimeter at any given point. The super icky subtext being here that if we don't protect the bunker, the Nazis are going to come in and execute all of our wounded men. We hold off the first wave and get a moment to re-equip ourselves before getting absolutely rocked with an artillery bombardment. This whole level does a really good job of making things feel overwhelming and desperate. This almost has the same energy as the end of Halo Reach, where you're just fighting for as long as you can last. After repelling the second wave, our favorite 5-minute timer pops up, letting us know that there's hope and end in sight. We just need to live that long.
Reinforcements in 5! Hang in there!
We weather another artillery barrage, and then the squeaky wheels of tanks can be heard over all the gunfire. We find a Panzer Shrek and kill not one, not two, but 3 Tiger tanks, which again, at this point in the war, there is almost no chance there were any of these things rolling around before a bunch of American planes swoop in to save the day.
Hey, look at those markings! They're friendlies! Help me! They're P-51 Mustangs! They're right on our side! Great job, guys! We did it!
Now, in my memory, I could have sworn that that was the last American mission, but we actually get one more to do.
One last time.
Taking the fight across the Rhine River and into Germany directly. We start off on a landing boat just laying machine gun fire into a bunch of Keebler elf-looking houses.
Here I come.
But those houses are already shooting back, so I think this is okay. Our landing vehicle can't take us in further because there are landmines along the riverbank, so we dismount to get around that obstacle and start eliminating the 88 gun crews. As we fight our way through the streets, you can see some houses with white flags outside of their windows. This is an indicator of civilian presence and an attempt to surrender. But judging by the destruction and active fighting all around the area, it's low odds that these people are still there. But it is still a small, pretty sobering reminder that there are always normal people getting caught up in this stuff all of the time.
Nice.
The fighting takes us block by block through this German main street until we find ourselves battling through a cemetery again, which, as we've established, burial grounds are also protected spaces in war. I'll also note that the church is also fully occupied, flying Nazi flags and being used as another military location. We make it to the town square where the last flak gun is located, and another 2 Tiger tanks, clearly running on the fumes of hopes and dreams, crash through into the town square. We quickly slap satchel charges on both of them, destroying them, and then kill the remaining Germans left fighting. We meet up with our commanding officer in the cemetery, and finally, after essentially winning this war ourselves, he decides to offer a lowball battlefield promotion to Sergeant Randall, and then kinda just blows us off.
Sergeant Randall? Well, one more thing. How'd you like to be an officer? I'm offering you a field commission as a lieutenant. Good leaders are hard to come by. What do you say?
Well, I'd be honored, sir. But the thing is, we'd be short a sergeant. Corporal Taylor here, he might be worth looking at.
Regardless, thrilled at the opportunity, and with only 3 weeks left in the war, we fade to black for the final time, and we roll credits on Call of Duty 2. It is wild to me that so far in 2 Call of Duty games, the British, of all people, have been the top dogs for war crimes committed. I know the scales are going to tip as time goes on, but it is just sort of surprising to see it listed out. But anyways, my friends, that is all we have for this video. Call of Duty 3 is next in our series, and I'm honestly really excited for this one since I've never actually played it. Please be kind and do good, gamers. I will see you all again very soon.